Hey everyone, I want to thank you for joining us again today. My name's Brian Doyle from vCIOToolbox, and I want to welcome you all to today's vCIOToolbox learning series. The learning series is something that we like to bring to our client base and others to really share information that vCIOs can take out to the streets and really be able to share with their customers. The learning series is really about bringing in experts, and I'm going to introduce you to ours in just a moment today that are going to share various topics that you can then share with your customers and build your knowledge so you can do a better job of being their advocate. So I want to thank you all for attending, and I want to welcome today's guest, which is Reid Johnston. Reid is the co-founder and CIO of Teal, and I want to thank Reid for joining us today as he shares his in-depth knowledge of Microsoft Copilot.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, glad to be here. Looking forward to talking about Copilot with you. I can jump right in and share my screen if that's all right.
Yeah, let's jump in and kind of look at where we want to start on the Copilot journey today.
Cool. Yeah, so Microsoft has lots of Copilots. That's the way we should start out. The first one is Copilot, and that's you can go to copilot.microsoft.com and interact with the LLM that way. Similar to those of you that have visited ChatGPT, that's the public interface to Copilot. Second one is Copilot for Microsoft 365. And that's really what we're going to spend most of our time today talking about. That's for business customers. That's Copilot that has access to your secure data in your Microsoft tenant. And then there's Copilot Studio, which formerly was called Microsoft Power Virtual Agents. But Copilot Studio lets you build your own AI chatbot. And that chatbot can look at a specific subset of information, like your website, like SharePoint libraries and your tenant, individual documents, Word documents, PDFs. You can publish your chatbot within your environment into Microsoft Teams, for example, or onto a website or out to Facebook, and you can email it. And then there's Azure AI Studio, and that's really kind of the piece behind all of this. Azure AI Studio lets you create your own large language model, lets you build your own custom GPTs effectively, and it lets you access data that's outside of your tenant, like SQL databases, maybe third-party services through APIs. So you can bring that data in and then publish it into Copilot Studio that we just talked about, and then expose it to your team members and your clients and vendors through Teams and the website and so on. So lots of Copilots. We're gonna spend most of our time today talking about Copilot for 365.
And that Azure AI Studio is really where you're able to feed the machine, it sounds like, Reid, where you can bring in data that's truly proprietary to you and kind of feed that data lake with that information so you can start getting answers that are customized and really more germane to what you're trying to accomplish as a business. Feed it with those great public sources to round it out.
Yep. Yeah. So the architecture behind all this is pretty extensive. So that's what I'm going to share next. Let me put that slide. So this diagram here really shows when you're using Copilot for Microsoft 365, what all is happening. So you're going to type in a prompt, create a document for me, or you're going to ask it some information. That prompt is going to go into your Copilot, and it's going to get pushed over and interacted with the Microsoft graph. There's a process called grounding. And that grounding process is really where the graph provides extra context to your prompt to make it easier for the AI to interact with. It's going to take that modified prompt and push it over to the large language model in Azure. The large language model is going to process it and provide a response. That response is going to come back and go through Copilot back to graph again, where there's additional grounding that's going to take place. And there's going to be a validation that the information returned is only data that me as the requester is supposed to be able to access. And then that response goes back into Copilot and back to me as a response. So a lot of steps, but there's a lot that happens behind the scenes to make sure that what I'm requesting, I can actually see. So that's the architecture.
And that's really interesting too, because it really helps kind of land on that concept of least privilege, right? The user's only seeing what belongs to them or they've got rights to see. So for those of you that are thinking about AI and its capabilities, especially if, like, let's say you're in a DoD setting, right, where you got to protect that CUI, it sounds like those least privilege rules and the interaction here between Copilot and the graph would be able to handle a lot of that.
Yep, for sure. And that brings us into the discussion on security. So what really separates Copilot from Microsoft 365 from Copilot that's available publicly or from ChatGPT is your experience is really restricted within your tenant. So when you onboard with Copilot, there's an entire process that Microsoft recommends that you go through to make sure that your users are part of the right security groups. They don't have access to data that they shouldn't have access to. Microsoft provides that commercial data protection so that the information that you're typing into a Copilot prompt is not commingled with other tenants or used to train the large language model for future use. So security is really baked in from the beginning with Copilot for 365. And that's really where we need to be in this day and age for sure.
Very cool.
So the thing I want to start with, now that we've kind of framed up how this works, is how does your organization really get started with Copilot? And I'm going to start with their adoption page. Microsoft has a really nice site that they built out to allow a customer or someone that's considering using Copilot to learn about it. So you go to the adoption.microsoft.com. They have a success kit that you can download that has all sorts of information about Copilot and how to enable your organization for Copilot. If I scroll down a little bit farther, they break out their information in really three different areas. So, section for leadership to understand how this can impact your organization, the benefits, the concerns I may have, user enablement, how I'm going to use it, how I can learn to do prompting, how I can leverage different applications, and then the technical readiness piece for us as MSPs, how we help our clients ensure that their Microsoft tenant is configured properly to make sure that users are only querying the data that they really should have access to. So this adoption site is a really nice place to start. They also have a link that basically takes you in to understand how Copilot works, how the prompting works, how you surface documents within the environment. Really useful. And then there's a community as well. I've read a lot of the discussion in the community, things that are working, things that aren't working, feedback from users. This is really powerful, especially when you're thinking about how do I get the best value out of this platform. Listen to what the community is doing. That's been really powerful. From getting started, your users need to learn, well, how do I interact with this? And that's really the next step, which was the Microsoft Copilot Lab site. So I'm going to pull that up here just a second. So the Copilot Lab site that Microsoft provides really will give you a deep dive into how you use Copilot within all of the different Microsoft applications. You can see Copilot's available in lots of different applications. We're going to talk about Word and PowerPoint and Teams today, but it's available in Whiteboard, it's available in Forms, Viva, Stream, Loop. They're adding the Copilot to all of their products. And you can click on any one of these to really get a nice deep dive into how it works. Additionally, they provide some starting points for prompting. And prompting is really how you're going to interact with the Copilot. I'll go into view all prompts. They break these out based on which application you're using, like Excel or PowerPoint, based on which category you want, or like editing something, asking questions. So this is really how you can get started quickly to understand how to interact with Copilot. But we've been kind of looking at the surface stuff. So maybe now it's time to actually jump in and use Copilot in a Microsoft application. So I'll start with Word. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
Cool. So I'll put Word on my screen. This is just Microsoft Word. You can see when I open a blank document, I've got a button for Copilot right in the document, and I've got Copilot in my toolbar. Each one has a different purpose. So to start with, I'm going to use Copilot to help me draft a document. And this is the use case where many users get the biggest benefit with the AI. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to create, copy and paste. I'm just going to say, write me an SOP for how to reset a password on Office 365. So think about as it's drafting this, it's taking my prompt, just bringing it in through Copilot, bringing it into the graph, rounding it, pushing it back out over the Azure, bringing it back, and then back to me. It's happening pretty quickly. So here's the first example. How to reset a password. It built this a lot faster than I could type it. That's for sure. And I'm going to click keep it. And now I've got a starting point of an SOP. Now I've got to make sure that this information is right. Copilot didn't give me any sort of citation here. It's going out to the internet to figure out this information, but it's a great starting point. So that's how we can use Copilot to generate a kind of a first iteration of the document. The next piece that I want to talk about is how we use Copilot to analyze the document. So to start with here, I have our 11-point cybersecurity checklist or 11-point checklist that our marketing team built. And maybe I don't want to work through a 4-page document. I want to distill it down so that I can use it in other places. So I can click on this Copilot button in the upper right corner, and I can ask Copilot about this document. Now you'll remember we were looking at prompts grid. Microsoft provided that prompt library. There's a button here that says view prompts that allows me to surface the different prompts, and I can summarize the document. I can list the pros and cons. I'm going to go ahead and summarize this document. So Copilot is going to read this document. It's not going out to the web because it's using the context of what I'm working with within Microsoft Word. So it's going to summarize this document and give me some feedback here. And then we'll get this just.
Wow, that's generating. I mean, it's really amazing how, it can read, summarize, and then give us these responses in such a short period of time and really help us get to the next step in what we're trying to accomplish. Research time can kill, right? So this is amazing.
Yeah, I've found that, depending on time of day, depending on probably load on the cloud system, it can be faster or slower, but really here pretty quickly, it took this document that is broken out into different bullet points and numbers, and it's given me some nice summarization. The neat part about this is you'll see these little reference bubbles that actually show me where within the document that didn't pull that information to create that summary. So now I have citations with my own document. When I was referencing earlier, generating an SOP, I didn't get any citations. So that's the difference there. But this is really great for summarizing a document, for extracting information about the document. Where this gets even more powerful, I think, is when we talk about PowerPoint. So I'm going to go into PowerPoint. Got a blank blank document. I'm supposed to create a presentation based on this 11-point checklist. So I can go into Copilot right in PowerPoint. And one of the predefined prompts that it has for me are create a presentation from a file. So when I click that, it's going to look at the most recent files that I have opened within my Microsoft tenant. There's that 11-point security checklist. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to hit go. So now Copilot is reading that document. It's going out to the web, and it's gathering images, and it's gathering other information, and it's going to combine that and then create a slide deck. And it's pretty quick. It's working its way through it right now. It'll take a few seconds.
Now, this is definitely a step I could see would be a huge time saver for those that are content creators, because we tend to really get involved in the presentation. We start playing with the designer tool, to see if we can get the absolute layout we want. Most of us are not pure designers, so it doesn't end up being very cohesive in some respects. So even, depending, or even just to kind of see it go through the process and give you something for output, now you become more of an editor as opposed to a creator. Yes, you may want to swap out some elements, but now you're not starting from that tabula rasa point. And, I can imagine how many hours this is saving. I know I've spent 6-7 hours on some of my PowerPoints for a 1-hour session.
A lot of times it's just getting started. You got to get started, and that's the toughest part. So here we go. So now I've got a PowerPoint deck, 11-point security checklist. Copilot has gone out, it's grabbed images, it's placed my content within the slides. I can go into Designer, and I can easily reformat different slides. There's the guy with the hoodie, that's the security plan you see all the time. But very quickly, now I've got a slide deck that now I can customize. Now I can go back into Copilot, and I can extend this and add information from the web. So I'm going to say, add a slide about password reuse and cite your statistics that we found. Hit go. Probably doesn't see. All right, password reuse. So here it made this slide for me, and I asked it to cite sources. It didn't. Now, the last time I did this, it did. So that's an example of, you're working with something that has lots of fluidity and lots of change all the time. I could ask this in a slightly different way and maybe get that slide built with source names like it did when I was preparing for this presentation. But again, this shows you how quickly you can at least get started. So pretty powerful, just with that PowerPoint itself. Let's check another.
So Reid, before we go there was a question that came in from one of our attendees just asking, can you feed it your logos and your branding as part of this creation component?
Yes, you can. It can pull your data from SharePoint. So just like any other files, it can pull your use of language and images that we have in our. Yeah. Yep.
So that would really just be part of the prompt that you're creating to kick off this PowerPoint as well. Grab from XYZ library.
Yep. Now I would take this. Yeah, I would take this, and I would take our PowerPoint template, and then I would apply the template to what we've got here and reformat these slides. And I'd still be saving a ton of time from starting from scratch. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you could see that for a lot of your general internal PowerPoint needs too. That's plenty. Just doing that and getting getting that PowerPoint put together. You may want to go a little deeper for anything going public facing, right?
Yep, that's right. So here, remember at the beginning, I talked about Copilot for Microsoft 365. So here we are, copilot.microsoft.com. I'm signed in using my Microsoft account. So I have Work, which looks at my internal data, and I have Web, which looks at just the public web. So this is another way that I can use Copilot and interact with it, kind of like ChatGPT. Anybody that's used ChatGPT, this is the experience that you have. But I can query my data within my tenant. So I'm going to do that now. So remember we were talking about that 11 point, document earlier, that checklist. There we are, 11 point IT security checklist. So I can type summarize, and when I type the slash command, it's going to pop up the different documents, people, files within my system that I've accessed recently to enhance my prompt. So summarize that IT security checklist, and I'll just click submit. And pretty quickly, it's going to read that document, and it's going to give me an output. Not bad. So now I could take this, I could put it into an email. Microsoft is actually adding a feature so that when you attach a document to an email, you can ask Copilot to summarize the contents of that document and put it right in the email for you. How many times do you attach things and then you have to type up what the things you're attaching are about? But I can take this and let's say, let's make a social media post for this. Create a short. Now I'm creating a post based on the document that I just loaded. Stay secure with our IP checklist. Not bad. So it did that for me, and that's pretty neat. Now, one of the things that we did early on with Copilot and Copilot Studio was we took our HR handbook and we turned it into a chatbot that our team members could interact with to ask questions about our HR policies. So I can do the same thing because now I have access to all my documents in my tenant. I'm going to start a new chat, and I'm just going to say, looking at, and I'm going to start typing handbook. Here's our Teal handbook. What is our PTO policy? Now, Copilot is going to interrogate that document within our tenant, and it's going to return an answer. And it's pretty quick. Much faster than I would be able to open the document and find where it is, for sure. There it is. Now it gave me the PTO policy, it gave me some additional information, and then it cited the source. So I could go in and look at that document and with it. So that's pretty powerful. So that's my data within my tenant, accessible from Copilot. We are able to.
Yeah, you can imagine, like when I look at this, I think of many things that, my team has asked me for through the years. This certainly would speed it up. And, for most of us in the MSP world, we're always trying to run as lean as possible back of the house, right? So when you look at these tools and think of the things that you do need to share with your teams and how can you automate that to reduce some of the labor that sits behind it, it can be quite powerful. This is great.
Yep. But now I want to step into Copilot and Teams, because that is really where I've found the greatest use case for improving productivity and just making my life so much easier. So here we've got, hopefully you can see this on the screen. Here we've got a recorded meeting where our account management team was doing some internal training. Really not referencing vCIOToolbox because we use it and we love it. But in this training, we were talking about ways to ask strategic questions and ways to better connect with our clients. So I couldn't attend this meeting. What we're looking at here is the output from Microsoft Teams Premium, which has some basic AI components to it. It will do some basic meeting notes for you, some basic follow-up tasks. But there in the upper right-hand corner is my Copilot file. And I can open up Copilot and interrogate the transcript of this recording and get caught up on this meeting. So the first thing that I want to ask it is, I missed the meeting, summarize it for me. So summarize the remaining points of the meeting. So when I do that, Copilot's going to go read through that transcript. And the thing that I've found is the summary from Copilot is more detailed than the AI notes summary from Teams Training. So while Teams Premium is only a quarter of the cost of Copilot, you get a much better output from the AI. So here I've asked for a summary. It did a great summary. You're talking about the account rater here, and many other things. And I could also list action items. So what were the action items the team argued? Fill out the account rater, watch the videos again, generate a list of questions. So really quickly, from not even attending the meeting, I know what we were talking about and I know what the follow-ups were. The really interesting thing that you can add is asking the AI for its own suggestions. That's what I found really interesting. What are the things that I should be thinking about? So here we could have Copilot suggest some follow-up questions based on the meeting that occurred. And this is really interesting. If you're having meetings with clients or if you're having meetings with vendors, what else should we ask? How do we access the system, definitions, really interesting questions. So Teams integration of Copilot has been my personal favorite and where I've seen the greatest productivity boost for me.
No, that's really cool. There's so many tools out there that are trying to do that AI component of capturing your notes and all that, but being able to query notes, because I feel the same way. Like even with the tools that I'm utilizing today, I will get a long set of notes and I might be back to back on 6 meetings. And I want to go back to that first meeting because I know there was a point that was being made that I want to go back to, and it was in the middle of the meeting. And now I've got to sift through, what's probably the equivalent of 6 to 8 pages of text just to try to find that meeting point. So that power of being able to ask some questions and be able to extract that data from inside that is huge for those of you that might be on back-to-back meetings all day.
Yep. And Microsoft is releasing the follow feature where you can be added to a meeting and not even worry about attending. You can just go into the follow capability of a meeting and interrogate it and get all of the summary. And that's the best thing, not even going to some of those meetings, for sure.
Hey, Reid, before we leave here, Dustin asked a quick question. Could you expand, reiterate the difference between Teams Premium and Copilot Microsoft 365 Teams meeting summaries?
Yeah, sure. So going back here, what I pulled up on my screen is the interface of Teams Premium. So Teams Premium gives you a lot of additional capability just beyond the AI notes and summarization of meetings. But think of Teams Premium for note-taking as a one-way street. It'll give me an output and I can't make any changes to it. It is what it is. It's going to show me kind of the major meeting notes. It gives me a nice breakdown of who spoke when, what the follow-up tasks were. Copilot is different because Copilot is actually looking at the meeting transcript. And just like it lets me query the data within my tenant, it lets me query that meeting transcript to get any kind of information about that meeting quickly. So what was said, what the topics were, dates that were mentioned, where there was disagreement on topics, those sorts of things. So Teams Premium is available as a month-to-month subscription, where Copilot is an annual fee. That's the primary difference. So we were talking about productivity here. Microsoft commissioned a study with the early adopters of the Copilot platform. And I saved a couple of screenshots from that report that they have published on their website, just to share some of the information that kind of reiterates what we've been talking about. High number of respondents saying that they get to a first draft faster, 85%, saving time on mundane tasks, finding files faster, helping generate ideas. This is some of the data that Microsoft found from surveying the early adopters of Copilot. This next slide here, we talk about in some more detail, completing tasks faster, spending less time processing email, catching up on meetings and so forth. And I didn't even go into Copilot for Outlook because you don't even want to look at my emails. There's too many emails in there, and it has a hard time keeping track of all that stuff.
They won't look at my 26,000 emails that are saved because you never want to get rid of anything.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So definitely there's a lot of productivity boost that happens in Copilot. But we talked a little bit earlier about prompting being so important and getting really specific with your prompting. So Microsoft has a kind of a nice structure that they recommend for prompting. It really is 4 parts: goal, context, source, and expectations. So when you're building what you want to get out of Copilot, you don't just say, make me a list of things. It's generate 3 to 5 bullet points. Why? To prepare me for a meeting with a client. What data should Copilot look at? Look at my emails, look at my chats. How should it be responded to? Simple language to get up to speed quickly. So you really want to be specific with your prompts, and the first attempt may not get you the information you want. You may want to revise those prompts and I would change them so that you can really get to the detail that you're looking for. A lot of the testing that I've done, tinkering around with it, I've found that as you structure those prompts, the information that you put at the tail end seems to have more emphasis from the LLM than what you put at the beginning. And as you're writing the prompt, consider focusing more on what you want as opposed to what not to include in what's being returned. And then just keep iterating, keep trying it. It'll take time, but you'll find the prompts that you like. When you do find a prompt that works well, save it. I use a text explainer personally. I found that really helps. I have it pops up and it'll give me all kinds of information depending on the application that I'm in. If I find a prompt that I like, I save it so that I can recall it easily. And just beware of the timeline that as your entire company is putting data into your Microsoft tenant, it's not being indexed instantly. I've read that it can take 48 hours or so for new files that are being put into your tenants, new emails that are coming in to be indexed by the semantic index in Graph so that they can be accessed through Copilot. So that email that just came in may not be returned in a search. So really neat stuff. I've had a lot of fun playing around with it.
And I tell you, that last sentence right there is one of the most critical ones because I've been doing some work, with various flavors of AI as it relates to some content generation, and you get some reading or some output that just is not in any kind of language that anybody uses. Sometimes I think they're looking at the Oxford Dictionary and trying to find the most complex word out there for what I'm trying to say, and it's amazing. So, things like using a simple language or in a humorous but informative tone, or those kind of little descriptors really help shape the output much better than just kind of putting in the information you're trying to get. Think if you just stop that sentence right there, Reid, look at team chats since June, you're probably going to get a dramatically different output than you're going to get by putting in that last line about putting it in a simple language so I can understand quickly. You probably cut 600 words out of the response and a lot of the big adjectives they like to use.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've found as I'm prompting, the more examples I can give how I want it to sound, the more it'll sound like that, where it's returning a response. So that's been really helpful with generating emails.
Not to put you on the spot here, Reid, but does Copilot have the ability to build a branding voice yet? So where you can actually kind of give, hey, this is how my company wants to communicate consistently. Can you apply a brand voice like some of the other AI capability or systems can?
So the way that others do that is by preloading that voice language in the prompt ahead of what you're querying. So you could likely do the same with Copilot. I haven't personally been successful with that. I've asked it to look at my emails and write an email that sounds like these previous emails, but it's been hit or miss. And that's been the big kind of, I guess, concern for me. It feels like, there's a lot of this that is halfway there. It was pushed out pretty quickly, I think. It's very powerful, but there are features even since it's been released that have come and gone, like the ability to interrogate a calendar. That was available early on and got pulled probably because of some issue with that. But my hope is that companies that have jumped on the bandwagon early in the year are now probably just getting to the point where we're thinking, are we really using this? Are we getting that investment that we made out of this tool? I think Microsoft has a long way to go to really build out the capabilities of this, to get people to renew when it comes time to renew. Because there are so many other products out there, but the differentiator here is accessing your own data from your own tenant.
And that's, for those of you that are concerned about privacy too, there's something very strong in that part of the message as well. When you're accessing your own data and you're able to build that privatized data repository, you've got more control as well. You might not get the same outputs you would get strictly off of a public, by contributing back to the public with your data as well, but you're certainly isolating the concerns that your clients are going to have, that your team's going to have about where their data is going in the world of AI.
So this was fun. Thanks for having me on. It's fun playing with this and finding more ways to use it every day. Sure.
Awesome. Well, hey, I want to open up the floor. An anonymous attendee, and I'm going to put some guesses here on who this might be, though, Reid. Reid seems much smarter than his business partners. Is he? He's certainly more handsome.
I know.
Well, Reid said he was in this industry for 25 years, and I will give him this much. He doesn't look like a guy that's got 25 years under his belt yet. So that's a good statement there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, at this point, we want to open up the floor for your questions. If you've got any questions specifically about AI and Microsoft Copilot, love to hear them. While you're potentially preparing some questions, Reid, maybe you can tell people how they can reach you.
Yeah, so I try to be pretty active on LinkedIn. You can message me out. I really enjoy chatting with people about all kinds of topics, especially AI. We did a pretty fun video early on. I mentioned about using Copilot Studio. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. You can visit us at tealtech.com as well. Learn about our services. Street, working with companies really all over the country that really care about customer service and have a focus on protecting their data.
Awesome. Well, Reid, it looks like at this stage, there's no new questions coming in. I want to thank everybody for attending today. We'll be able to give you a little bit of time back this afternoon. I know we can all use some additional time, but I really want to thank everybody for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, vCIOToolbox will be doing these learning series events monthly again, where we bring in outside speakers to share a little bit about their industry knowledge, so you can take that to your customers and really help educate them and keep reinforcing, why you're not just, a service partner to those clients, but you're there to provide leadership and help them understand the things that they don't know out in the world of technology. So Reid, I really want to thank you today for joining us, and for everybody else, I hope you have a great rest of the day.